Hello and welcome everybody back to another weekly Saints recap. I know it's been a few weeks, but I'm starting to get back into the swing of things, and I will have the weekly videos going back up now. In this episode, I'm going to recap the Saints versus Panthers, the Saints versus the Patriots, and of course, the game that happened yesterday, the Saints versus the Giants that was probably the saddest loss I have seen as a Saints fan in quite a long time, and that's saying a lot considering I've seen some pretty brutal losses. Now let us get straight into the video, and I'm going to start off with the Saints versus Panthers game. This was the first brutal loss of the season for us as we lost to the Panthers 26-7. I mean, it was a rough one. The injuries and 8 coaches being out did play a very big factor, and that was obvious as the play calling was not great at all, and the players that we were missing were in positions that were getting absolutely picked apart. I mean, it was just overall a game where injuries and coaches being out were a big factor, but that's not really an excuse for the loss. I mean, the first half was the most brutal of the game by far. We didn't move the ball, let alone score at all. I mean, the only 7 points we had came in the second half. The run game, we couldn't get it going. I mean, that's really the only good part of this team that we have right now. Alvin Kamara is the best player that is playing on this team right now, and it's not even close. And we couldn't get the ball going. We had 17 carries for 48 yards total in the first half. It was just sad. I mean, the Panthers are a good team, don't get me wrong. I mean, they just lost to the Cowboys, but it was a very good game. Their defense is legit. That Cowboys offense is looking very good as well. But that defense, they're on historic pace for rushing as they are probably the best run defense in the league. So the rushing, and I'm not that surprised about it. But it was the pass defense and the pressure that we got. But staying on the offensive part for us, the passing game was brutal, to say the least. Jameis Winston looked very bad throughout the entire game, but the offensive line didn't really help him out much. I mean, there was injuries. We just could not block that defensive line. I mean, the schemes they were running with their defensive line, they were getting to the quarterback very, very effectively. So, I mean, I have to give credit where credit's due. Their defense was getting to the quarterback and was putting pressure on Jameis. I mean, his movement in the pocket and all that was okay. I mean, that's the most improved part of his game, but it was just the fact that he couldn't get out the pocket in time to actually make his movement look better because the offensive line wasn't blocking. They weren't blocking at all. Now let's get off of the offense and go on to the defense for this part. It was sad. We could not get any pressure on Sam Darnold at all. We took a huge step back from week 1 against the Packers where we were all over Aaron Rodgers and we made him look uncomfortable. This game, we made Sam Darnold look elite. He had a very clean pocket, and he didn't have to deal with any pressure. He was able to pick apart our defense when the coverages fell apart and his receivers were getting open. I can't fault them. I mean, our coverages were not great. The blitzes that we send this year, the blitzes that we've sent against quarterbacks this year have been abysmal. We are not getting there. We're sending 6, 7 people at the quarterback, and they're not getting there. I don't know what we're doing wrong, but we need to stop with these blitzes, and we need to have Cam Jordan, we need to have those front 4 actually start getting pressure on the quarterback if we're going to win these games. It's just so frustrating to see the defense play so elite one week and then just completely fall apart the next week. It's so confusing to me. This team is so confusing with what we're trying to do this year, and I honestly don't know what to make of it. I really don't. I mean, really, some of the only key parts of this team that look good is the run game some weeks, and that's really it. I mean, special teams is even starting to look bad. We haven't got really any big returns, and Aldrick Rosas, he's been horrible. We need Will Lutz back. I mean, case in point, look at the Giants game last night. Of course, I'm going to get deeper into the recap with that. But if he would have made that field goal, we would have won that game. And I guarantee Will Lutz makes that. Aldrick Rosas cannot make clutch field goals. He just can't make field goals at all, period. But Will Lutz can. And when he comes back, we're going to see a big difference in our scoring, and he's going to be able to get more points on the board for us. It's just that simple. We are getting rid of Rosas as soon as Will Lutz comes back because he can't do anything for us. He's just not good. It's just that simple. The second half rolled around, and we still couldn't get anything going. The Panthers just completely were just rolling us the entire game, and there's not much else to it. Now I want to look at the Saints versus Patriots game. This game was a complete opposite of the Saints versus Panthers game. The offense still looked average to above average, not playoff level. We haven't looked playoff level since week 1, and I don't think we're ever going to see that again. That game was a complete anomaly. Kamara was able to run the ball well again. He only had 3.7 yards per carry, but those carries were very effective in us getting the ball down the field and putting points on the board. Jameis Winston looked like a game manager. That's it. No more, no less. He's looked like an above average to average QB all year. I still don't understand why people think that he is going to be the quarterback of the future for this team. He hasn't proven anything through 4 weeks. He hasn't shown anything. And it's clear Sean Payton does not want to let him go and let him be a quarterback. He refuses to. He's barely thrown over 150 yards per game this year. He's not a quarterback. He's just being a game manager, handing the ball off to Kamara, throwing short passes, and throwing a deep ball once a game that's actually effective. But we don't do it as much as I would like to see. He was 13 for 21 for 128 passing yards and 2 touchdowns this game. That's okay, I guess. But, I mean, it's just watching him play, it's like, cool, you can move around in the pocket. You're not a bad quarterback. You're not going to win us or lose us the games, but you're not going to be a playoff quarterback for us. It's just that simple. Now, Marquez Callaway is looking like the wide receiver 1 that people were saying he's going to look like. He's been very effective. His route running's been good, and he can catch the ball. He's filling in quite nicely for Michael Thomas, but of course, when Michael Thomas comes back, it's going to be automatic an improvement in our offensive production. At least I would hope. But the offense is looking average. I mean, that's really all there is to it. The defense against the Patriots, though, looked absolutely elite. Looking at the stats here, we had 11 quarterback hits, 6 tackles for loss, 8 pass deflections, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, and of course, in those 3 interceptions, we had a pick 6 against Mac Jones. I mean, we looked phenomenal. I mean, the Patriots were not able to move the ball against us. We were getting in the backfield, we were making Mac Jones look uncomfortable, and we were making plays. I mean, the defense was the reason why we won that game. They were giving us fantastic field position. And if we have to rely on the defense, case in point, looking at the Giants game, we're not going to win. Because they're so give and take sometimes. One week they'll look phenomenal, and then we'll have a game like yesterday where they just absolutely just die. They just don't show up. So we cannot rely on the defense this year. We just can't. I would say overall that game, the team looked really, really, really good. But once again, even in that game, we still saw how bad Aldrick Rosas was. I mean, he missed multiple field goals. And those field goals, when I looked at them, those were both pretty easy makes for Will Lutz. So once again, I'm still harping on that, but Rosas needs to go. Will Lutz needs to come back so badly. We need him back as our kicker. He will be the reason why we win some games going on into the season. And now, without further ado, let us get into the Saints versus Giants game from yesterday, October 3rd. Wow. Just wow. I really don't know what else to say. It is a perfect example of stats don't tell the entire story of a game. And let us get the good out of the way before we dive into the reason why we lost that absolute horrible game that we just played yesterday. Jameis Winston looked like an above-average quarterback, but still a game manager. 17 for 23 for 226 yards and a touchdown. That's good. He didn't really have any mistakes that game. There was nothing of note that I could say where he looked bad, but he's still not a playoff quarterback. He's not getting things done to get us through the playoffs. And I still stand corrected. Everybody who said Jameis Winston's going to light up defenses in this offense has just been wrong. Now, if Michael Thomas comes back and he starts lighting defenses up, then of course I'll say, okay, I was wrong. He just needed Michael Thomas to start doing things. But as of right now, he has not been able to run this offense at a rate that I would like to see us going into the playoffs. I can't see us winning a playoff game, let alone even making the playoffs this year. Now, the offensive line, they played really well despite some injuries. We're down Eric McCoy and we're down Teron Armstead. Those are two very big pieces, and they didn't allow a sack this game. There was some pressure that got there, but still, they played pretty well that game. I can't really complain. Once again, Kamara had another great game. 26 carries for 120 yards, and Taysom Hill had a great rushing performance. He had 2 key rushing touchdowns that gave us the 21-10 lead that we ended up blowing. But, the rushing the ball, we looked pretty good this game. The Giants really couldn't stop us much. And Callaway, once again, he had a great game, fitting in for Michael Thomas very nicely. I believe his stat line was 2 catches for 72 yards. He had that 56-yard receiving pass from Jameis Winston. It was a beautiful pass. Callaway had a nice catch. And that's really it for the positives for this game. Let us get into the rest of the game. Offensively, we are just stagnant. We don't move the ball. We're averaging 23.5 points per game this year, but the issue is we get a lead and then don't score. We saw it in the Patriots game. We got a lead and we didn't score very much. We become complacent with leads, and we've seen that even with Drew Brees when he was here. We would get leads and then we'd be just okay with it, and teams would start racking up points and start coming back on us. But with Drew Brees, we were able to push them aside and actually score more points to end up winning the game. But with Jameis Winston, we are afraid to let him go and actually be a quarterback. So when teams start mounting these comebacks, when our defense becomes lazy and our offense doesn't want to move, we can't do anything. If a team comes back and starts scoring, we are lost. It's just that simple. We can't do anything. Once we get a lead, our defense has to play good because our offense isn't going to do anything. It's just not. Our defense has to play good all 4 quarters or we're going to lose the game. It's just that simple. We don't move the ball effectively. We just don't. We had a 21-10 lead halfway through the 4th quarter and we didn't score again. We had multiple drives where we got the ball back, but we just could not score. And it was just the play calling was bad. We get 1 to 2 yards per play and then punt the ball. They get the ball back and then they drive down the field and score. It's just, we play so safe that it loses us games. And why is it that we're playing safe? Simply because of Jameis Winston. I hate that I'm sounding like a Jameis Winston hater, but it's just that simple. Sean Payton will not let him go and be a quarterback. He will not let him go, throw 30 passes a game, and help us win games. He wants him just to be a game manager, and he's going to have to break out of that mold if we're going to win games. Alvin Kamara clearly cannot carry us. And speaking of Alvin Kamara, we're barely passing him the ball. He's only becoming a running back. What happened to the effectiveness where he was able to catch the ball and run the ball, and he could win us games like the Vikings game last year? It's just this offense, it hurts to watch sometimes because we become so stagnant and so okay with having such a small lead. And Taysom Hill, I really hope we don't have any passing plays for him for the rest of the year. He can't pass. It's just that simple. He had 3 passes this game, and one of them was a pick. But when he runs the ball, he is effective. And we need to keep it that way. That's really all I got on the offense. We're stagnant. We can't really do much. We can't move the ball when it's late in the game and we have a lead, but we need to keep extending the lead to win. And let's get into the defense. Where do I even start on this? We had no pressure. None. The defensive line was non-existent. We may as well just have not even rushed a defensive line that entire game because Daniel Jones did not look uncomfortable hardly at all. Our run defense wasn't that great either. Saquon was able to get 4.2 yards per carry. Well, the team was able to get 4.2 yards per carry, which, it's okay. It's not elite, but still, it was able to effectively get the ball down the field. But the run game is not what I want to focus on. It's the passing game. The passing game was abhorrent. There's not much else I can say about that. We allowed Daniel Jones to have his career high in passing yards. 402 yards on 28 of 40 passing for 2 touchdowns. He had a pick, but it was a garbage time pick. Well, not garbage time. It was at the end of the first half. There was 3 seconds left. We didn't do anything with it. So that pick honestly doesn't even matter. It's just the fact that our defensive line got no pressure on him, and he was able to sit in that pocket and pick apart our corners and safeties. And speaking of our corners and safeties, where was the coverage? We saw it last week. Where was it this week? There was nothing. We had no coverage. They were able to get deep passes on us all game. They were able to pick us apart in every level of the field. I mean, sloppy, no communication, horrible coverage choices, bad preparation. Everybody who played coverage this game did bad, and that is Lattimore included. There was multiple plays where Lattimore just could not cover his man. And that's it for the defense. I mean, it was sad. It was honestly sad. And as I said in the beginning of the video, Aldrick Rosas is a bad kicker. We need Lutz back. If Aldrick Rosas makes that field goal earlier in the game, we win this game. We don't go into overtime. We don't lose this game. We should not have been a team that goes into overtime with the Giants. The Giants. It's just, man, what are we doing? I don't know what to make of this team. We've had 2 wins where we win in dominant fashion, and we've had 2 wins where we look like the actual worst team in the league. To come out and do this in the home opener in the newly named stadium is sad. I'm sticking by my 5-12 prediction. I'll give a max of 7-10. That's all I can see from this team. I don't see anything positive in this team. I really don't. With that win yesterday, there's nothing positive. We can run the ball, get yards on the ground, but we can't score off of our main run game. I don't know what to make of this team. Next up, we got Washington next week. From this game, I expect either an overperformance to compensate for yesterday's game, like we've seen so far this year. We had the bad game against Carolina, and we overcompensated against New England to win the game. Or we watch the beginning of the end of the season, and we absolutely collapse. That's the only 2 things I see. I can't see a good game. I just can't. I'm so glad that people are finally starting to see what the Saints really are. We're not a legit team. We're not. There's nothing about this team that says we are legit. There is no bright spot in this team besides Alvin Kamara, who we do not deserve. And even then, Alvin Kamara hasn't looked like the running back of old. We're holding him back somehow. It's just, this team it's just so frustrating to watch. And this is why I wanted to come into the season with no expectations and not expect anything from this team. Because I knew it was going to be disappointment once again. And I've been on a ramble for too long. If you've liked the video, then like the video. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned. We will have the Kevin's Weekly Picks coming up later on this week. And of course, I'll be recapping the Saints versus Washington game that happens next week. Hopefully, I have a little bit of a brighter tone, and I can say a little bit more positive things about the Saints instead of this 19-minute ramble of just absolute spewing garbage on the Saints. So once again, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.